Still no writing allowed, so it's back to the shed again. I've made a few silhouettes and put them around the yard. A magpie and a kookaburra, a fish, an old steam train, and a classic looking racing motorcycle, which turned out pretty well, but it wasn't my design. So I thought maybe I could design a silhouette of my own motorcycle. So I found a picture on the internet, pasted it into my CAD program, and then laboriously traced around all the bits that I thought needed to be traced to make a silhouette. I only have an A4 size printer, so this is the number of sheets I need to print to make the whole design. I've got a rusty piece of 3mm thick steel in stock that I got from the local scrapyard a while back. This isn't ideal, but I'm going to give it a bit of a clean up and then see how we go. With all the pieces of paper laid out on the steel, the next job is to paste the paper onto the steel. This is the first step of getting the pattern transferred onto the steel so I can cut it out. With that done, then I need to laboriously cut out the pieces that are going to form the silhouette. And I'm just using a craft knife for this. And then pulling all the pieces off the steel. Now, by spraying white paint over the top of this, I can start to transfer the pattern onto the steel. But while doing this, I thought, oh dear, whoops, I really should have done this next step first. So I had to wait for the paint to dry, and then I started to draw all the lines on the inside of the pattern, and then was able to paint over them to transfer them onto the sheet as well. With the pattern completely transferred onto the steel, it's time to peel off that paper before the paint dries and glues it on too heavily. The pattern hasn't transferred perfectly. There's been a bit of leakage under the paper and a bit of soaking through, etc. But it's enough for me to follow. The next step is to drill the holes in the disc brakes, front and back. This is the cheap little plasma cutter I'm going to use to cut out the steel. It's been a useful little unit. The plasma cutter uses electricity, of course, and compressed air to form the arc, and it cuts through the steel very easily. The problem is, though, that I have to hold it nice and steady, and because there's no friction, it's quite difficult to get a nice smooth line. So I'm trying to steady myself by using two hands and also leaning on the steel as I go. And of course it looks much better when I speed the video up. The intermittent noise that you're hearing cutting in and out now and then is the air compressor cutting in. This is the back view, and you can see how rusty the steel is. The plasma cutter slag can be knocked off with the chipping hammer. With that done, then a final run over with the flap disc on the angle grinder. I want to hang this on the shed wall, so I'm just welding 3 brackets onto the back of the silhouette. 2 at the bottom and 1 at the top. The brackets will make the silhouette stand away from the wall. This will allow light behind it so that you can see the pattern a bit easier. Even using the angle grinder, I still can't get this steel completely rust free, so I'm going to paint it with Rust Guard before I spray it with some black paint. Now it's hanging up ready for painting. You can see the light shining through the various patterns and lines that I've designed into it to try to make the thing look like a motorcycle. I'm no artist, and although this does look like a bike, it's certainly not what you'd call a professional job. But that's not the point. The point is to do this little project for a bit of entertainment. Time to mount it on the shed. I've got 3 screws in the shed wall, and I'm just going to hook the bike over onto, and there you go, Bob's your uncle. I can see now that I should have made the lines around the engine wider because there's not that much light that comes through right in the middle. Oh well, it's okay. Another little project completed to ward off the boredom.